The game against the Bills ended in disaster for the Ravens, but what Kyle Hamilton said afterward hit even harder than the loss itself. He didn't hold back. He didn't sugarcoat anything. He was blunt, brutally honest about how it felt watching Josh Allen tear apart this defense. And the way he described it gives us a clear picture of what's really going on inside this team. If the performance on the field already had fans fuming, Hamilton's words only piled on the pressure against the defense and the coaching staff. And when one of the team's biggest leaders speaks that openly, you know there's something serious going on behind the scenes. Kyle Hamilton didn't mince words after the loss to the Bills. He was straight to the point. He said he felt like throwing up when he looked up at the scoreboard and saw Josh Allen had thrown for nearly 400 yards against Baltimore's defense. It's rare to hear a player speak that bluntly, but it shows just how deep the frustration ran. For one of the team's most respected leaders, this wasn't just an emotional reaction. It was an honest, raw confession. And those words weren't chosen lightly. When a player says he felt like vomiting, he's expressing more than anger. It's shame, even disgust for what happened on the field. This isn't just about stats or another mark in the loss column. It's about watching a unit that was supposed to be elite collapse on one of the NFL's biggest stages, Sunday Night Football, against a direct rival. That cuts deep for any defender, especially someone who plays with the fire Hamilton brings every single snap. The power behind his outburst comes from who he is. Hamilton isn't just another guy on the roster. He's the face of this young defense, the one tasked with leading the secondary and inspiring those around him. When he says a performance was embarrassing, he's not only speaking for himself. He's voicing the collective feeling of the locker room. It's as if he said out loud what everyone else was already thinking. And by taking that stance publicly, Hamilton created a reality check that goes way beyond post-game emotions. His message was clear. This defense has to wake up because scoring 40 points on the road means nothing if you can't hold a lead. The Ravens might have one of the most explosive offenses in the league, but it won't matter unless the defense does its job. Hamilton hit the nerve, and he made it clear the patience is gone. And his outburst didn't just end there. By showing that much frustration, Hamilton opened the door to an even harsher truth. How can a team that came into the season so hyped put out a performance like this right out of the gate? That huge gap between expectation and reality is exactly what will break down in the next point. Kyle Hamilton wasn't the only one feeling that shock. The reality is, the Ravens defense came into 2025 with a ton of hype, carrying big expectations. They were supposed to be a tough, mature unit ready to match up against any offense in the league. But when it was time to prove it, they fell apart completely. What we saw was the exact opposite of what was promised. Hamilton, one of the top safeties in the NFL, isn't speaking out for no reason. He lived through that brutal contrast between what was projected and what actually happened. His frustration made it clear. It's not enough to carry the label of a dominant defense. You have to back it up when the game demands it. Otherwise, the team just looks inflated by hype that doesn't match reality. And that's the key part of his reaction. Hamilton showed there's no room for self-delusion. He knows this defense can't get comfortable living off last year's reputation or off-season buzz. If the reality is this far from the expectation, someone needs to step up and call it out. That's exactly what he did, with words strong enough to echo both in the locker room and with fans watching at home. This clash between hype and reality isn't just a PR problem. It directly impacts the group's confidence. When leaders feel ashamed, it's a sign everyone needs to rethink their approach. And this wasn't just a message for fans. It was aimed squarely at his teammates, too. It was like Hamilton saying, either we wake up or we're going to keep embarrassing ourselves. And that tone of urgency is what sets up the real weight behind his words. It wasn't just emotion, it was intentional, which takes us right into the next point, the real message behind Hamilton's outburst. Kyle Hamilton's comments were like slamming a fist on the table. This wasn't just raw emotion after a tough loss. It was a wake-up call. By using such a strong expression, he made it clear he's not going to accept another season defined by defensive collapses in critical moments. His words carried layers of meaning. On the surface, it was a shame of giving up nearly 400 yards to an elite quarterback. But underneath, it was the exhaustion with a pattern that's played out too many times. The offense delivers, and the defense lets it slip away. Hamilton knows no championship team can live like that, and his words sounded almost like an ultimatum. Something has to change. What makes this stand out is how he spoke not just as a player, but as a leader. He knew saying something like this would hit hard in the locker room, stir up discomfort, and even crank up pressure on both players and coaches. But that was exactly the point. It was a call for everyone to look in the mirror and admit they're not living up to what they promised. That leadership weight is what made his words so powerful. He could have gone with safe cliches, the usual will bounce back lines. Instead, he exposed the wound. And when a player of his stature speaks with that kind of disgust, it hits differently for teammates and for fans. That raw honesty instantly connected with the fan base. He spoke out loud what so many were already feeling in silence, which leads us to the next point, how Hamilton's words became the perfect echo of the fan sentiment in Baltimore.
All right, we're already past the halfway point of this video, but before we continue, I noticed you haven't left a like yet. It's really important because it helps YouTube keep showing you my content so I can keep bringing you the best news about the Baltimore Ravens. So go ahead and hit that like button. It's free and it really helps. Thanks. Now let's get back to it.
If anyone wondered whether Kyle Hamilton was in tune with Ravens fans, that doubt ended after this game. His "felt like vomiting" line wasn't just a personal vent. It perfectly summed up what thousands of people in Baltimore and everywhere else were feeling. It was like he scooped up the collective frustration and turned it into words. Ravens fans know how to recognize effort. They know when their team is simply beaten by a better opponent. But what happened against the Bills wasn't that. It was a collapse that never should have happened. That's why Hamilton's reaction hit so hard. It was the exact same frustration, disbelief, and helplessness that fans felt as the game slipped away. And that kind of connection is powerful. When a player shows a kind of raw honesty, it only strengthens his standing with the team. Hamilton didn't just solidify himself as a leader on the field. He also cemented himself as the voice of the fans. He built a bridge between the locker room and the stands, showing he's living the same emotions they are. But that connection also ramps up the pressure. Because if even the leaders are calling this unacceptable in public, the scrutiny on the defense only intensifies. And when the spotlight gets that hot, the attention naturally shifts to the coaching staff, the ones tasked with fixing it. And that's exactly where we land next. What Hamilton's comments mean for the Ravens' immediate future and for the people leading this defense. Kyle Hamilton's outburst isn't going away anytime soon. When one of the most respected voices on the team shows that level of disgust, it has ripple effects in every direction. First in the locker room, where every defensive player now has to ask themselves if they're truly giving everything. Then in the coaching staff, who are now under the microscope like never before. For John Harbaugh, the pressure ticks up, but for defensive coordinator Zach, it's even heavier. Hamilton didn't name names, but his words exposed a wound tied directly to Orr's work, the lack of consistent pass rush and the inability to hold up when it matters most. That kind of public frustration also hits mentally. When a leader voices something that raw, the locker room can't just shrug it off. The defense knows they need to respond fast, or this frustration will turn into a routine. And no competitive team can survive when shame becomes normal. At the same time, Hamilton set the tone for the season. He showed he won't accept excuses. He won't settle for almost wins. And he won't pretend things are fine when they're not. That stance adds pressure, but also opens a door for the defense to rally together and answer back in a stronger way. And that's the bottom line. Either the Ravens fix these defensive flaws now, or they'll keep stacking up losses that feel like gut punches. Hamilton became the voice of that warning, and his words will echo through every practice and every game from here on out. Kyle Hamilton's outburst wasn't just about one loss. It was about a pattern that keeps holding this team back and threatening its full potential. The Ravens have the offensive firepower to go toe-to-toe with anyone, but the defense keeps breaking down like this. It won't matter how many points Lamar and the offense put up. Hamilton's words pulled back the curtain and exposed just how urgent these fixes need to be. He didn't just speak for himself. He spoke for the whole locker room and for a fan base that's tired of watching wins slip away. So here's the big question. Will this defense step up and answer the challenge laid down by one of its leaders, or are we about to watch the same frustration play out again and again? One thing's for sure. Hamilton's words aren't disappearing, and from now on, every single game will be a test of pride and identity for the Ravens.
And if you, just like me, are passionate about the world of football and want to learn more about the Ravens' legacy, don't leave this video without sharing it with that friend who is also a Baltimore Ravens fan and will love this content. See those video suggestions on your screen? The first one was handpicked just for you, and the other is a recommendation from YouTube itself. See you there, and until the next video, go Flock!